to talk about your health. Living a primal lifestyle.
You know, we have Tom from Tampa on the phone. Hey, Tom. Good morning. It's bright and early now, huh?
Hey, Paige. Good.
Hi, Tom.
How you guys doing? Nico?
Doing great.
Good. Hey, your newsletter's outstanding, man. I'm telling you, man, it is outstanding. And so is the Primal Edge. I love that stuff. I'd never be without it. I mean, I've been on it now 3-4 months, man. I mean, it's just, I can't get over how good I feel.
Primal Edge is, people are raving about it. People who are trying it, they know because you can feel it.
Would not be without it.
Call now, toll free at 1-877-927-6648. Internationally at 727-445-1044. Now your hosts, Nico DeHaan and Paige Clark.
Good morning, I'm Nico DeHaan, and welcome to Living a Primal Lifestyle, where we explore a return to a more balanced, natural, wild world.
And I'm Paige Clark, where we are going to recover our natural health, our rights, and our freedoms. Good morning.
And it's a beautiful day in downtown Clearwater. It's 79 degrees, sun is out just about, and we're going to have a sunny day, partly cloudy in the afternoon, a few showers, the normal thing for August. We like it.
That's right. Well, I'm ready to get out of here to get a little break from all this heat. But
Yeah.
But you know, it's been fun kind of hunkering in and watching the Olympics recently.
Yeah, we have been, and I think it's inspirational. It brings up the question to me. And I found this great article. It says, do Olympians get too much exercise? And I always thought, people can overdo it. There's no doubt about it. And there's been several studies done over the years. And this article I found real interesting because they go through the whole chronological order of how they did the studies and how the studies ended up.
Yeah, there was definitely some real concern over whether or not this endurance-type training had a long-term negative effect on their health.
Right.
And they thought yes, they thought no, then they thought yes. So let's kind of go through this, because as we watch these people, we kind of live vicariously through them, and we envision ourselves wishing that maybe we had trained like that. And you do wonder, kind of in retrospect, when you and I talked a little bit about the show The Biggest Loser,
right, where
they were pushed in this kind of endurance, that was such a stress type of work. And although endurance training is also very stressful,
yes,
that they have different goals, or maybe mindsets. How much does the mindset affect
not only
it too?
that, one thing, you're starting off with people who are sick, and the other test, we're starting off with people who are healthy.
Well, that's exactly right.
Yeah, so that's a whole different bag right there. But they started in 2011, for example. They did a male entrance to an annual marathon cross-country ski race in Sweden, revealed that the committed participants, those who completed the race during times and during a 10-year stretch, and the ones that finished with the fastest times were more likely than their counterparts to have an AFib, which is a multi-year follow-up after a follow-up period. So arterial fibrillation is a disruption of the heart's natural rhythm, affecting the chambers of the heart. And most likely they're talking about the left chamber, I think, most of the time, the bottom chamber.
Well, there is an increased risk of stroke tied to atrial fibrillation, but the study's authors speculated that they couldn't prove the cause and effect. It seemed possible that the athletes' serious strenuous activity had contributed to these heart problems.
Right.
But then they had another study in 2012 which looked directly at the hearts of long-term competitive athletes using advanced scanning techniques.
So they actually mapped the hearts.
They mapped the shape and function of the heart muscles of 40 elite male master athletes before and immediately after endurance exercise. And these scans showed evidence of what seemed to be lingering damage to the athlete's heart.
Right.
The scientists reported that the right ventricles, one on the lower chamber of the hearts, were noticeably enlarged and not functioning as well as the left ventricle. And this really showed that the right ventricle pumped considerably less blood than would be expected from a completely healthy heart. And it was so pronounced and persistent that the scientists decided that the condition was pathological and gave it a name called exercise-induced arrhythmogenic right ventricular cardiomyopathy.
I'm glad you tried that one, not me. I'll tell you that. Yeah.
Which basically translates as unhealthy and probably permanent. So this really had researchers worried.
So then there was a new study published in May, a publication called Circulation. Scientists at the Saarland University in Germany decided to look at the hearts of long-term athletes who were training but not competing anymore and compared them.
And, so kind of what happened then is they saw, I lost my spot here, Nico, maybe you can pick up.
Well, they looked at 33 extremely accomplished older athletes, including 6 former Olympic triathlons and rowers, a one-time Ironman world champion, a cyclist who once almost won the multi-week Tour of Spain, and a former winner of the Munich Marathon. They ranged in ages from 30 to 60. These were men who had trained strenuous for years, continued to work out for about 17 hours or more weekly. No one were included in the study, unfortunately.
But they put them through a battery of tests, and they looked at their aerobic fitness and, most important, kind of the state of their hearts, and they used lots of high-tech scans for the shape. And meanwhile, at the same time, they took 33 of the same age men who were healthy but not particularly physically active, and did the same test.
So this is a good study because they had both sides.
They had both sides, and they showed that the athletes had remarkably different hearts than the other men.
Definitely.
Particularly their right ventricles, which were considerably larger among the non-athletes, just as in the earlier study of these master athletes, and the left ventricles also were relatively enlarged, though not to the same extent.
But what they did find that the function was there. In other words, the function that they didn't show up before while they were training.
It's like the heart recovered.
It recovered.
So the scientists saw no signs that these differences in size, affected the heart's function, and it was unlike that earlier study. So the athletes in general had very low resting heart rates, which is considered a sign of cardiac health, and no symptoms of atrial fibrillation.
Yeah, so this shows that there is damage, but the damage can recover when
kind of like when we train. And we have a little damage to our muscle, and then the body rebuilds it up.
It's a little different than that because the heart remains enlarged, which makes sense because it needs to pump more blood when you're an athlete. So
they said that there was no long-term scarring in the hearts.
Right, and the function was there, and that's the real important part. So I think for normal people, I think still, getting that type of training that we always talk about, the burst type of training, is really good for us because those are short bursts. You're not really overtaxing your body. And certainly, if you're an athlete, you've already been training most of your life, usually.
You've been building up to this for some time.
You've been building up to it. So I think that for these athletes to go out and do this, I think it seems fine. I think they should be monitored naturally. And
as they say, that study intimates that such harm is likely to be short-term and not worrisome. So when we see this overtraining, these people, as you said, have been conditioned. They've been leading up to it, and we don't have to worry like we were about the biggest losers who were being stressed. That
so it really matters where you start, and that's, I think, the important thing to take from this. Because, we like seeing these athletes, and we definitely don't want to think that they're impairing their health just by training.
And, I think this is a kind of a closing point. It's important to know that being fit does not immunize anyone against heart disease or sudden cardiac arrest. And if you have chest pains when you're exercising or any tightness in your chest, you need to double check this, because folks, we know that much heart disease that we see today may or may not be a full function of your exercise or your exertion, but more of a function of your diet, because we know that diet is what causes clogging of the arteries.
Yeah, so let's talk about diet after this with what the Olympics are showing us. So it has to do with diet. I think that's important. Folks, we have a brand new Health Signals newsletter.
Hot off the press, good stuff.
Yeah, we worked hard on this all week, and starts off with why coffee is a drug, and it's a good one. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. So pick that up. Pick up our Health Signals newsletter. We love it, and you'll love it too.
And welcome back. We're living a primal lifestyle. Hey, Nico, let's click on over to TFNN.com because you've got our Living a Primal Lifestyle neck pain relief exercise.
Yeah, this is really, really important stuff. And you can lay on your bed and do this. And there's various exercises to relieve the neck. And if you're working on a computer all day, you got probably neck problems. And
we have a whole situation with text neck and computer neck. We've really got to counterbalance the movements and do some stretching. So we always have something up there for you guys to use all you got to do is hop up and get moving a little bit. But let's talk about these guys that have been moving. We've been watching the last week or so on the Olympics. And how do these Olympics? We talked a little bit about their exercise and their fitness. And let's talk about how do Olympians eat.
Yeah, I was very curious in this too because, of course, in Rio there, where they have a lot of sandwich shop, they have a lot of indigenous food. That I learned from my professor, Eduardo de Lima. Always good food out there. So what are they eating out there? What does this show us?
Well, you know, it is really amazing when you look at Phelps, because he's just such an anomaly of human size. I mean, he's just, you know, hit with it. What did they say his arm span is? 6'7" or
it's
something?
Huge, yeah.
He's 6'4", but his arm span is 6'7".
Wow.
So he's actually, you know, gives him that advantage. But obviously, you know, it sounds like he's used carb loading a lot, like a lot of athletes, endurance athletes. But the eating habits of athletes today look quite different. And we were, this article they're talking to sports nutritionists who work with elite athletes and researchers who studied performance nutrition about how these top athletes eat today and how they looked out at their training diet of the current Team USA Olympians, and this article zeroes in on how they fuel up at lunch.
Of course, we had the last Olympics. They were really talking about what Phelps was eating, and he was eating burgers and hot dogs and all kinds of stuff.
Just
Whatever.
Throwing it in.
Yeah,
throwing it down the hatch.
It seemed like it, but that's really not what most of the athletes are doing. It seems fairly recent that the athletes are turning more and more
meticulous eaters. We hear.
Yeah,
that's kind of interesting. From green smoothies and beet juice to salads and sandwiches, not only are athletes eating really clean, but many don't eat much at all.
Yeah, it says 130 elite athletes he surveyed. He noticed that the eating patterns were balanced and clean. The athletes didn't follow any particular fads like gluten-free or restricting themselves from eating particular foods or food groups. They even indulge in occasional sweet or drink. Of course, these are young people. They can pretty much eat anything they want. It doesn't seem to bother them. They're moving so much. But I think that's not really the case. I think these people have to. If they want to be on that top 1% or top 0.1% of the athletes in the world, you better be eating clean.
Well, I think it's really great that these athletes are actually becoming more serious and thinking about what they're putting in their bodies. And there's a particular Asker Jenkins group, a leading sports nutritionist who has worked with Olympic champions, is currently a visiting professor at Loughborough University in the UK. The difference between winning and not winning are becoming smaller and smaller, and more athletes are becoming very serious about this nutrition.
Here's some calorie counting for Gabby, who's 90 pounds, 4'10". 2,000 to 2,500 calories a day. That seems pretty normal for an athlete. We have here Julie Johnson, 135 pounds, 5'7", soccer, 3,000 to 4,500. So she's moving a lot more. Gabby's moving in short bursts. This girl's on the field all
and Gabby's a real tiny little thing, too.
That's true, too. Then we have Corey here, who's 25 to 3,500. She's a shotgun shootist, so she's not moving as much, although they do have a track to run on, too.
It looks like we're seeing that a lot of these people are definitely enjoying more whole foods, whereas you don't see all these branded, packaged, boxed foods that they're trying to promote as the food that gives them their performance of the gods status.
Here's Jordan Burroughs, 163 pounds. He's a wrestler, 5'7", 1,200 to 1,500, quite a bit.
Well, that's because he's doing those weight restrictions.
Yeah, exactly.
So many wrestlers do.
Yeah, and here we have Nathan Adrian, 220, 6'6", 3,000 to 8,000 swimming. So he's in the pool. Not only is the cold water, even though it's not cold, it's cooler than the body.
Right.
It takes much more energy to keep you warm in those situations.
Yeah, and so it is amazing that there's such a variety, but I guess there's a lot of intuition, and they know what they need to fuel their bodies.
Yeah, I would think, that's... And the thing that really astounds me about these athletes, too, is that you go through a rhythm in training. And I know this because I'm competing in jiu-jitsu often, and you have to kind of peak at the right time, too. So you're trying to get your body in sync so you know when you're peaking. And, it's definitely a science that you work on by yourself. It's a mind game, too. So, I mean, there's a lot of things going on here. And you've got coaches, people telling you what to do, people telling you what not to do, and you stay in the zone. Here's Morgan King, 108 pounds, 5 foot. And
she's my size.
Yeah. And she's 2,800 to 5,000 calories a day. These people need a lot of calories in here.
Because they're really, I like the way this ends. Morgan says, I'm very strict with my diet, but it's not some crazy diet. She says, every once in a while she accidentally eats a pizza. But instead, she focuses on eating real foods, definitely more like Michael Pollan versus Michael Phelps.
Yeah.
You know.
And
So.
probably as Michael Phelps gets older, he's probably watching what he's doing more and more. As, you know, it used to be, I think it's a kind of little ego gets in there and say, I can eat anything I want, I'm okay.
Right.
You know. But sooner or later, you have to kind of...
Well, it's probably better to err on eating healthy food to start. I think it's a good idea. Speaking of food and healthy food, I thought this was really interesting what you said. Can we share this article about Kellogg's Corn Flakes? You know,
I've read many things about Kellogg's Corn Flakes, and of course I knew the one brother was a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and the other brother was basically had the cornfield, and he had a buddy who had an extrusion company, and that's how they got to it. But I really didn't know about this part.
Before we get into this article,
okay.
Did you know right in Dunedin, right near where my old house is the Kellogg Mansion?
Oh,
they
really?
had a summer home here.
Oh, they did?
The Kellogg Mansion is in Dunedin. It's a beautiful kind of Spanish style, kind of like the Vinoy. Beautiful piece of property. But, yeah, they had a summer house. But Kellogg's Corn Flakes was first invented to stop masturbation. Bet you that's something that'll...
Well, he apparently was a physician, and he was uncomfortable with sex. In fact, he didn't like sex. He didn't have sex. Him and his wife adopted. He was celibate. And he thought that masturbation was a real abomination. He thought he could cure these things by eating unspicy, untasting food.
So he thought by having bland food, this would quell the desires.
Yes.
You know, it was amazing.
He has a book that he wrote about this, and it's in his book, Plain Facts of Old and Young, Embracing the Natural History, Hygiene of Organic Life. He describes 33 symptoms which he said were caused by masturbation.
Oh.
And one of them was epilepsy, there was acne, bad posture, stiff joints, infirmity, what's that? I'm not sure what that is. Poor development, fickleness, and palpitations.
Palpitations. He says that he created the meal as a healthy, ready-to-eat, anti-masturbatory morning meal. And
I didn't know that. You know, I started eating Kellogg's Corn Flakes when I was about 10.
Truth is stranger than fiction.
It didn't help me any, I tell you. It was funny.
You know, did you see this already? He actually was so against having sex that he adopted his children rather than impregnating his partner.
Yeah.
Yeah. You would have never known.
And he first made a granola, which is a cereal from oats, and later was changed to granola. So
he developed an enema machine in which the bowels were cleaned out with yogurt. But he was really interesting character there.
I would say.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, well, we got to take a break, so, yeah.
We'll be right back, folks. Welcome back to the show, folks. Have you been inspired by this summer's Olympic Games? Well, here's the latest science on how natural supplements can supply that and safely improve your workout.
Yeah, that's good to know, you know, and like we just learned, many of our athletes that we're seeing today on the TV are really adopting whole foods to keep themselves happy, and we know that carbs have been used for thousands of years to enhance exercise. The ancient Greek athletes used honey to boost carbs, and they went on, and they were onto something because we know that activated barley and a lot of these quick-acting carbs gave them the energy to
yeah, and I think honey is the perfect example because I'm not so sure about the whole grains and the legumes and the fruits and the vegetables because they have an after effect that honey doesn't because honey goes straight to the liver, being processed, doesn't spike your sugar.
Yeah.
That's a huge point. And if
so we know it's a ready-to-use fuel. It's just that if you're not the athlete, we can easily overdo carbs, correct?
Yeah, well, what we're finding out today, too, is that when we're discussing this, we're noting that many people now are ketogenic athletes.
Oh, that's
and they're not going to be using carbs at all. In a 50-mile bike ride, you see those guys downing drinks and the little gels and things like that, where the guy who's burning fat
He doesn't need all that stuff.
He doesn't need all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it can be used. I think you have to be careful.
It's about the fuel that you can burn.
That's exactly right.
And you have to, carb drinks that have healthy ingredients are beneficial when the training is of long duration, perhaps.
Well,
but there's no evidence that,
yeah,
I know, but there's no evidence of benefiting for training sessions of shorter duration. That's why, those of us weekend warriors at the gym that are loading up on carbs, your workout just is not long enough.
Yeah.
To have you be able to disperse this intake of carbs that people are taking.
Right.
But I think it's great. Dr. Pompa is a marathon, runner, bike rider, and he works out fasted. He eats he goes 20 hours without eating, and he eats a ketogenic diet and has great performance and does well.
So here's creatine, whereas carbs are best for long duration, so they think creatine is best for short burst.
So the creatine helps with the burst exercising.
Yeah, and of course people are also using this to work out with weights and things like that. So a lot of studies being done on this, that creatine for endurance is weaker, they say, but creatine for muscles immediate use does work.
It helps to improve strength and muscle mass, so that's why a lot of people are taking creatine supplements. Pine bark extract, I love this. Pine bark is possibly the most exciting recent sports supplement study. A new superstar has emerged in pine bark. The study has 2 parts. The first 2 parts put people into an 8-week training program and then tested them on the Army physical fitness test. Oh, is that the arm hang and everything? I think so. Yeah. Which consisted of as many push-ups and sit-ups as you can do in 2 minutes and a 2-mile run. The only difference between the 2 groups was the one that was given 100 milligrams a day of pine bark extract, also called pycnogenol, and one wasn't. The men and women in the pine bark group had significantly better improvement in their 2-mile running time and were able to do significantly more sit-ups and push-ups.
And this is the same ingredients in the like grapeseed extract and things like that.
Pine bark extract is a super antioxidant, like bioflavonoid. It's fantastic. These people also had less oxidative stress, which is something we need to be aware of, that athletic performance creates oxidative stress, and oxidative stress is damaging to the body, and oxidative stress is aging to the body. So that's why we want some of these super nutrients to help counterbalance that. Right. Spirulina.
Spirulina, another one. And I've never used spirulina.
Spirulina is a blue-green algae that's loaded with nutrients and antioxidants. It's a true superfood, and a double-blind study found that spirulina significantly increases the amount of time people can train on a treadmill before they became exhausted. It's actually a great source of vegan protein, if you will. And people that take spirulina suffer less skeletal damage, so it may be a food that you want to add to your athletic arsenal of superfoods.
Yeah, we're getting into some I haven't really heard of. What's this?
Phosphatidylserine. Yes, phosphatidylserine is...
Double-blind studies have shown it can increase the amount of time you exercise before becoming exhausted by up to 25%.
Well, phosphatidylserine will actually help to keep cell membranes supple, so they get rid of waste, and they get Okay. So it's also great to take if you want to study. A lot of kids take these phosphatidylserines to kind of help focus and that kind of a thing. Okay. And beetroot, beet juice, my saying, beet beats the disease. And it's maybe an odd sports drink, but what happens is beet is a methyl donor, and methylation helps, reactions happen in the body. It helps us to detoxify. It helps to create the methyl donors that activate the B vitamins. So it's super, super good.
And they use beets to come in with HCl too, don't they?
HCl, hydrochloric acid. It's not hydrochloride acid. It's actually derived from beets, typically, food beets. And fenugreek, it's not usually thought of as an herb for athletes, Nico. But they found that male weightlifters that took fenugreek had significantly increased upper and lower body strength. That's interesting.
Yeah, what about betaine?
Well, betaine, which is derived from beets, also known as trimethylglycine, seriously helps athletes because they have improvements in arm muscle size, of bench pressing training versus the placebo. So betaine, I've always shared with you all that it's a great thing to take after you eat meals to help make sure you break down the foods and to provide those methyl donors. So people who take betaine have significantly improved body composition, fat mass versus lean muscle tissue mass. So that's something to know. We often talk about taking that to make sure you don't get the big belly, because if you don't digest your food.
Right. So it helps digestion.
Yeah.
And that's why it's in with the HCl, and that's why we get that from the beets. Saffron, another one I had no clue about.
Delayed onset muscle soreness, DOMS, is a pain and discomfort that we experience after exercising. It's experienced as stiffness, tension. But they found, a double-blind placebo study found that 300 milligrams of saffron powder really helped to alleviate this delayed onset muscle soreness.
Yeah, they gave it the same power as 75 milligrams of the non-sterile anti-inflammatory drug.
Well, yeah, so there you go. Much better than, say, your
natural.
Your Advil or something. You know, I think we find that from turmeric and also saffron. I wasn't aware of saffron, so I learned something new too.
Me too.
Schisandra. This is an adaptogenic herb that improves physical performance, and Soviet country has done quite a bit of research on using this with distance runners, and they ran their best times when they had this liver tonifying herb. And ashwagandha, which is a fabulous antioxidant, probably an adaptogen that really helps athletic performance because it helps the body adapt to stress.
And most of these things are really herbs.
Yeah, they are. They are herbs. But I like this last one.
The last one I use every day, and I think it's right on there.
Dark chocolate.
Dark chocolate, yeah.
People who have had a dark chocolate drink during the recovery period after exercise were able to cycle 51% longer.
Yeah.
So there you go.
No, not chocolate milk.
No, this is your dark chocolate with the real cacao, so you're going to get all those antioxidants. You know, we talk about that it's a great source of antioxidants for people. So
anything that ends with dark chocolate is okay in my book.
That's right. Exactly.
Okay, we'll be right back, folks. Please pick up the new Health Signals newsletter, number 16 for the year.
Here we are. We're over halfway through.
Yeah, also please pick up some Primal Edge, our daily nutrition, and pick up the Health Signals newsletter, look at the exercise, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Be right back in just a few seconds.
Welcome back to the show, folks. Nico and Paige here on Living a Primal Lifestyle. And if you have no stress in your life, you can skip this whole section.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think there's anybody out there that's the case. But this is one of my favorite subjects, and we talked about this a couple years ago. Forest bathing. What is forest bathing? Forest bathing, or Shinrin Yoku, means immersing yourself in nature, preferably in the form of a relaxed walk under a live canopy of trees. And the concept was developed in the 1980s in response to the rapid movement of Japanese citizens from the country into urban areas, and they translated as taking in the forest. The theory has become a mainstay in Japanese medicine today, and I think this is fantastic, and I love the research on this.
Yeah, and I think we could say that probably in Florida here we could do either the forest bathing or go for a walk on the beach.
Yeah, I think so. I think that anytime we're grounding, I think that's a big part of it. What I also think is the power of the conifers, the pines, the trees, the oxygen exchange of the chlorophyll. But it rapidly lowers stress hormones, blood pressure, pulse rate, and heart rate variability compared with exposure to a city environment. And, you know, if you think about it, your body responds at an unconscious level to the environment around you.
Well, just the smell out in the woods.
No, I mean, I really crave it. Stimulation from traffic, artificial light, and technology is just bombarding us today. And so meanwhile, chronic disease and mood disorders like anxiety and depression are increasing as we become more disconnected from nature. So researchers and clinicians have really started to turn to nature for answers. So, you know, here are some of the 8 benefits that you kind of bulletproof benefits you can get from forest bathing.
The first one is the lower stress and hormones. Walking in nature is a non-strenuous physical activity that will increase your mood. It'll decrease stress and hormone production, and it'll increase your longevity. Yeah,
average cortisol levels of forest bathers is 12 to 15% lower than even urban hikers, so that's amazing.
Yeah.
Boosting your immunity, being surrounded by trees rather than simply being outside, that's a good point.
Yeah,
May explain the immune boosting benefits of forest bathing, and I know what it is. It's the essential oils of the trees.
That makes sense.
Have remember, essential oils are the immune system of the plants. So when you get around evergreen trees that have aromatic compounds called phytochemicals, essential oils that increase natural killer cells, and that people who spend time forest bathing, they don't just have an elevated immune system as right after their forest bath. It lasts for weeks, maybe even up to a month. One of the studies we saw.
Yeah, it's your NK cell activity is always higher after forest bathing and raises your body exposure to more phytonicides.
Yeah, which are phytonutrients that are antibacterial and cleansing. It makes you smarter. Number 3, cognitive gains from forest bathing include a better mood, and it increases your performance and creative problem solving.
Yeah, and it's good for your respiratory system.
Oh, yes.
Forest bathing is a great opportunity to breathe in some fresh air. Chronic exposure to polluted air from cities can negatively affect more than your lungs. Long-term exposure to smog, particulate matter can contribute to unhealthy...
Put you at a higher risk of heart disease and all kinds of respiratory
raised
ailments.
blood pressure levels, arteriosclerosis, everything. Boy.
So you don't have a forest near you. You know, many people don't. Try and find one if you can. But if you live in the city and somewhere else that's lacking in nature, go find a park. Here are some things you can try. Go outside anyway. Get outside in nature. So the idea, like we talk, whether it's a park or just being outside amongst the living plants and so forth, is actually super beneficial to us.
Practice earthing. We always talk about that, connecting yourself to the ground with your bare feet.
Right.
Important thing.
Which is going to boost your immune system and also help to reduce pain and just increase your general feeling of well-being.
And then you can add different oils, diffusers. My wife is big into this, and we just went the other day and did a little shopping for different oils. And oils, of course, are fats. Which always sounds good to me.
The essential oils are the immune systems of the plants, and there are more phytochemicals than we've probably even been able to identify, and so many of these essential oils have amazing benefits on our immune system. Cypress oil is a great one. All of the pines and conifers and the spruces. We're coming, before you know it, it's going to be the holidays, and we're going to have a lot of beautiful conifers available that have miraculous benefits to our respiratory system.
Yep. There's another study that says that women live longer if they're surrounded by nature.
I like this study, and this really appeals to me. Will you show a picture of that little tiny house? This little tiny house is, there's that whole tiny house movement, and I picture myself one day having one of these little tiny houses. But yeah, it says that women live longer when they're surrounded by nature, and this confirms a hypothesis that was researched that shows that in natural environments, we experience a reduction in stress, an increase in physical and social activity, and this keeps us healthier. And the main purpose of many of these studies was to get insights on the relationship between residential greenness and mortality. The more you live within the environment of a nice green, lush forest, do you live longer? And the research was conducted on 108,000 women between 2000 and 2008. And of these women, 8,600 died during the study. Factors such as age, race, smoking, and socioeconomic status were taken into consideration. And they found that the women living with the most greenery in and around their homes had a 12% lower risk of all-cause accidental mortality.
I have a really good friend, Rose Fields, who
I know Rose. Yeah, I've met her.
Rose recently moved to Sierra Nevadas in California. She was my massage therapist for many years. She worked with me at the performance training for a couple of years. We were really good friends, and now the picture of this little house that's on our telestrator here is exactly where she's living. I mean, it's not this one, but it looks exactly like
She's got that.
And she shows little foxes running around and the different animals and the plumage that's out there on Facebook, and she's kind of living her dream. That's what she always wanted to do. She was always so tuned into nature and natural body things and the smells and all the things that you use aromatherapy. Yeah, and now she's living that dream. So
the conclusion of this research was that high levels of green vegetation have a contribution in decreasing mortality rates for women. Hope that works great for you, Rose Fields. And these results are quite important in modern science today, since more and more people are living in urban areas, and we're not connected with nature like we should be. And this is impacting our health, it's impacting our happiness, it's impacting our longevity. And so today we need to make that extra effort to seek these times out and find that time to reconnect with nature.
Yeah, there's another study here. Along with eating right and exercising, people should consider adding another healthy habit to their list, turning out the lights. According to a new study reported in the Cell Press Journal, Current Biology, on July 14th, showing many negative health consequences for mice under conditions of artificial lighting. And this will
we have artificial lighting in our city, so again, we've got this same conflict. We're missing the greenery, and we have too much artificial light. And when we kind of remove ourselves and get into more nature, we can live in a situation that's more conducive to our overall health and well-being.
Yeah, it's it's really confusing because we consider ourselves so much more advanced because we're building all this stuff. We're building roads and freeways and huge buildings and technologies here, and that's all wonderful.
Big superstores.
And bigger superstores, and we can't forget about nature because nature is what we grew up in.
That's right. And the good news, though, is that subsequently, when we get away from these artificial lights, the negative health effects are reversible when the environmental light-dark cycle is restored.
That's pretty cool.
It's up to you. Make the changes. But we got to take a short break,
Yeah,
and we'll be right back. Hey, and welcome back. We're at the peak of summer. We're in August. Leo the lion, the sun god. And let's talk a little bit about when we're out in the sun. For those of you that have been watching our show, I shared my ideas about using natural antioxidants, fat-soluble nutrients like astaxanthin internally to help prevent getting a sunburn. But guess what? We tend to overdo it sometimes. That's what we want to avoid. We don't want to overdo the sun. But there are some natural sunburn fighters and things that can help you recover if you do accidentally get too much sun.
Yeah, and here's a few sunburn facts. A fair-skinned person can get a sunburn in less than 15 minutes. A dark-skinned person can take hours before that happens.
Right.
Interesting, the sunburn process takes place and it's invisible to the eye. It may not show up for hours.
That's exactly right. And blisters related to sunburn could take hours or days to develop, and that's a sign you've really taken it too far.
Yeah, and it takes full 24 hours for this that sun effect to surface.
But have no fear, essential oils are here. Essential oils are fabulous in helping us heal from sunburn. And, we know that essential oils are helpful in helping your home smell nice, helping to ease stress and anxiety. They're terrific at all of these things, but they're also terrific at combating sunburn. And here are two favorites that are very excellent. This comes from Dr. Axe, but I could agree with him on this, particularly lavender oil. Lavender and peppermint oil are both very helpful in helping both prevent or heal or get relief from the sunburn.
Peppermint oil, I think coolness right away.
Well, right. Peppermint is cooling. Wintergreen is warming. Peppermint is cooling. Okay. So it's a natural analgesic. It helps to relieve pain, cools things off, It's also a very awesome at relieving headaches, but that's for a different subject,
And there's a homemade sunburn spray that's pretty cool. You get lavender and peppermint essential oils along with aloe vera, some
aloe
juice, aloe juice, and some coconut oil.
That's I do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I use misters, and using that aloe, I like using essential oils.
I
with
use
just
Mrs.
What?
No. You use misters, I use Mrs.
Well, lavender is also very healing. We know that lavender is extremely what we call skin cicatrisant. That means it's healing to the skin, and literally it can help reverse a burn, and or also help us if we have any scarring that might be a result.
And there's some good use for some grains, oatmeal.
A lot of people don't realize that foods in your pantry can actually be very helpful when applied. We often say don't put anything on your skin that you wouldn't eat. So why not go to your kitchen to help find healing substances for your skin? I think that's a great idea, and that's really, I save tons of money because I really use my food as a lot of my cosmetics. Like you mentioned, the first one is oatmeal, and it really helps dry skin and inflammation. It kind of quells inflammation. You can even add a cup of oatmeal to your bath at night, and enjoy soaking in an oatmeal bath.
I remember my mother using milk on me and with a washcloth, just exactly.
That goes back to Cleopatra.
Oh,
milk is think about it. Milk is healing. Think of the vitamins A and D in milk.
Okay.
What is that ointment that we buy for babies' little booties? Yeah. Vitamin A, D ointment. Right. So it's beautiful for skin. The story is that Cleopatra took milk baths, and that was one of her beauty secrets. I like that idea. I also often will take milk, and after it's kind of maybe past its point, let it sour a little bit, and then you've got the probiotics. Yeah.
Okay.
And
cornstarch.
Cornstarch can help relieve the painfulness of sunburns and kind of help keep you cool and dry.
And then we have yogurt, and we have black tea.
Yogurt is extremely healing. Again, it's got that milk base, and the skin's getting some of those natural probiotics.
Yeah, and one of the go-to is always apple cider vinegar. It has so many uses, and we keep it in the house always. So
apple cider vinegar is what I use as my toner on my face because it restores the acid balance to the skin. So I often dilute it, add a drop of essential oil so you don't have that strong vinegar taste,
and it stays on your skin longer.
And mist it on mist it on your skin.
Very good.
You know,
that's the show this week, folks, or today. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, so we'll see you next show, and have a great day and stay healthy.
Thanks for sticking around, folks.
Optimal health, peak performance.
You're watching Tiger TV.